Modern truck logic says capability requires a massive chassis, a V8, and a wall of onboard computers. The Subaru Sambar has a 660 cubic centimeter engine, smaller than most motorcycles, with 65% of its weight over the rear axle, like a Porsche, and no electronics worth mentioning. Yet across rural Japan, farmers have trusted it over everything else for decades. The engineering that earned that trust is genuinely weird and entirely deliberate. Mike Parker's Sambar sits at the edge of a muddy field, battered but running strong after 30 years on a North Carolina farm. He bought it used in 1997, when most folks in his county still trusted old Ford and Chevy pickups for chores. The Sambar, though, was different from the start. At sunrise, it is loaded with 50-pound feed sacks, fencing posts, and a battered toolbox. The bed may look small, but Mike swears it hauls more than a full-size truck when you count the trips it makes down narrow farm tracks where nothing else fits. The odometer rolled past 180,000 kilometers years ago, but the little engine still turns over every morning. Breakdowns are rare. When something does go wrong, a fouled spark plug or a leaky fuel line, Mike opens the rear hatch and gets to work with a socket set and a screwdriver. There is no plastic shroud to pry off, no computer to interrogate. He keeps a tool roll tucked behind the driver's seat with 2 wrenches, a pair of pliers, a plug socket, and a rag. Field repairs happen right there in the driveway, sometimes with the tailgate propped open as a workbench. A spark plug swap takes less than 5 minutes. Carburetor needle adjustment is done by ear with the engine's soft thrum as the only guide. On a typical day, the Sambar moves feed, hauls lumber, and ferries buckets of gravel for fence repairs. It slides through mud that would bog down heavier trucks thanks to its light footprint and rear-weighted traction. For Mike and other owners, the Sambar is more than a curiosity. It is a tool that earns its keep. Its reputation is not built on glossy brochures, but on years of reliable, honest work. That practical legacy is what sets the stage for the engineering that makes the Sambar so unusual. The secret to the Sambar's grip isn't horsepower or tire size, it's the way the engine sits just ahead of the rear axle, stacking most of the vehicle's weight directly over the wheels that do the driving. On paper, about 65% of the Sambar's mass rides on the rear axle, a ratio that puts it in the same league as a classic Porsche 911, at least in terms of weight distribution. That means when the Sambar pulls away with a load of gravel or climbs a muddy incline, the rear tires are pressed firmly into the ground, squeezing out every bit of available traction. Mud, snow, and loose gravel become less of an obstacle because the heaviest part of the truck, its engine, is always working in favor of the drive wheels instead of fighting against them. Automotive historian Dr. Ken Miyazaki explains that this layout wasn't just a quirk. By concentrating weight over the rear axle, Subaru's engineers gave the Sambar a natural advantage on slippery or uneven ground where front-engine trucks would spin their wheels or get stuck. The design also keeps the drivetrain compact and simple, with a short prop shaft and minimal moving parts between engine and wheels. It's a mechanical solution that pays off in real-world chores, not just on a test track. But the rear engine setup has its limits. When the road turns slick or the payload shifts, too much weight in the back can make the steering feel light, and sudden maneuvers can test the driver's attention. The Sambar's modest power and low center of gravity help keep things predictable, but the physics remain. Still, for the jobs it was built to do, hauling, crawling, and working in places where bigger trucks struggle, the Sambar's rear-weighted traction remains its quiet ace in the hole. Push a Sambar's wheel into a rut and something unexpected happens. The tire stays planted instead of hanging in the air. That's the signature of four-wheel independent suspension, a feature that didn't arrive by accident. Early Sambars, like most K trucks, rode on solid rear axles with leaf springs, cheap, reliable, but quick to lose traction when the ground got rough. Starting in the mid-1990s, Subaru engineers switched to a semi-trailing arm setup, letting each wheel move up and down on its own. By the time the KS4 generation rolled out, the Sambar could keep all four tires gripping the earth, even when crossing uneven fields or climbing over rocks. The result isn't just a smoother ride, it's real, usable traction, especially when the truck is loaded down. But traction alone doesn't move a heavy load up a muddy hill. That's where the Sambar's extra low, called EL gear, comes into play. Tucked below first on the shift pattern, EL gear delivers a reduction ratio that nearly doubles the torque at the wheels. The engine's modest output, often around 44 horsepower, suddenly feels much bigger. At crawl speeds, the Sambar can inch up a 30% grade or drag a loaded trailer without stalling, even when the surface is slick. The EL gear isn't an afterthought, it's a deliberate answer to the real-world demands of farm work and mountain roads, where slow, steady pulling power matters more than top speed. Together, independent suspension and the EL gear form a kind of mechanical handshake. One keeps the tires pressed into the ground, the other multiplies the force at each contact patch. It's this pairing that lets a K-class truck punch above its weight, turning a small engine and lightweight frame into a tool that handles jobs larger pickups might refuse. The Sambar's engineering isn't about flash or excess, it's about making every ounce of traction and torque count, especially when the going gets tough. Wes Lee, a restorer who has rebuilt more than a dozen Sambars, lines up his tools on a battered workbench, an 8mm socket, a flathead screwdriver, a rag, and a spark plug gauge. There is no need for a scan tool or a laptop. Swapping a fouled plug takes 4 minutes, start to finish. The carburetor gets tuned by ear with a careful twist of the needle, and 5 to 8 minutes for the idle to settle. Replacing a cracked fuel line clamp takes 6, maybe 9 minutes, with a wrench and a new rubber hose. Every job is done with the same handful of tools, and every part is within arm's reach once the rear hatch swings open. Wes quotes a full engine rebuild, pistons, rings, bearings, gaskets, at about $850 in parts. That is a fraction of what a modern truck's electronics, or even a single turbo replacement, can cost. He is clear, the Sambar was built for owners, not just mechanics. No hidden fasteners, no plastic covers, no dealer-only warnings in the manual. Every system, spark, fuel, air, can be stripped down and reassembled in a home garage. This is the kind of engineering that keeps old trucks alive on small farms and back roads, year after year. The philosophy is simple. If you can hold a wrench, you can keep a Sambar running. Japanese K-truck regulations, especially the 1990 law, drew a box around what the Sambar could be. No longer than 3.3 meters, no wider than 1.48 meters, and no bigger under the hood than 660 cubic centimeters. That's barely the size of a parking space, and not much more engine than a motorcycle. But instead of treating those limits as a handicap, Subaru's engineers treated them as a puzzle to solve. The Sambar's cab over design pushes the driver right up to the front axle, freeing up nearly the entire wheelbase for cargo. The engine is tucked just ahead of the rear wheels, leaving the bed as a flat, unbroken rectangle. By stretching the wheelbase to 2,170 millimeters and widening the track as far as the law allowed, they squeezed a cargo bed that covers over 40% of the truck's total footprint, more than most full-size pickups manage. A farmer or delivery driver could load nearly 350 kilograms of feed, tools, or produce, all while staying inside the lowest tax bracket and maneuvering through alleys or farm lanes where a larger truck simply will not fit. Every millimeter was counted, every rule met to the letter, and the result is a truck that hauls far more than its size lets on. This dimensional efficiency is the quiet backbone of the Sambar's reputation, a product of regulation and also of relentless practical engineering. On a muddy hillside, a Sambar lines up next to a late-model pickup, both loaded for a real-world haul. The big truck spins its tires and gives up halfway, its width and weight leaving it stranded at the narrowest bend. The Sambar, running in EL gear, inches forward, slow but steady. 40 miles per gallon is logged on a handwritten fuel sheet tucked in the glove box, a number that holds even with a bed full of gravel and tools. The payload maxes out at 350 kilograms, but the Sambar's low center of gravity and narrow track let it squeeze through farm trails that would shear off a modern truck's side mirrors. Tom, a recent buyer who traded his full-size pickup for a Sambar, sums up the appeal. He says he traded electronics that fail for a truck he can fix with a wrench. He keeps a spare spark plug and a socket in the door pocket, just in case. But he is quick to list the trade-offs too. The ride is harsh over broken ground, the cab rattles at speed, and the only crumple zone is his own knees. There are no airbags or digital safety nets, just steel, glass, and a lap belt. For drivers used to plush seats and climate control, the Sambar feels Spartan, even punishing. But for those who value fuel economy, field repair, and a truck that fits where others cannot, the compromises are part of the deal. The Sambar's worth is measured not in comfort, but in work done and miles covered year after year. Today, most trucks grow heavier, quieter, and harder to fix. But the Sambar endures, still serving farms and workshops with little more than a socket set and honest steel. Its utility isn't nostalgia. It's a reminder that sometimes less complexity means more reliability. Thanks for watching.